Record to the cloud, and that is showing recording for you up in the top left hand corner.
Yep.
Perfect. So in 3, 2, 1. I am delighted to be joined once again by Vish, who is a current DCU student studying the Masters in Journalism. Vish, thanks for taking the time to speak with me today.
Hi, Colum. Thanks for having me.
And I suppose this is really a video that is going to hopefully be watched by students who are interested in DCU, students who hold an offer to study at DCU. So thinking about, when back to when you were making the decision to come and study in Ireland, I suppose, how did you hear about DCU, and what made you ultimately decide to come and study the MA in journalism at DCU?
Well, when I was in the third year of my undergrad back home in India, I decided that I wanted to do my master's abroad. And especially because my undergrad was in English literature, I knew that work wasn't a viable option immediately after my degree. So I knew I wanted to finish a master's first and then go job hunting. So when I started doing a little bit of research, I knew for a fact that the US, for instance, was way too expensive. And I did look at the United Kingdom as well as Ireland. And I know that both the countries have very similar education systems, a fairly similar culture with some very pronounced differences. But I ended up applying to quite a few universities in the UK and Ireland based on like research online as well as an education consultancy agency. And I decided to narrow down to just Ireland after a while because Brexit was going on at the time when I was applying, and there was just a lot of uncertainty about the whole international student fraternity in the UK and to what extent they were going to be supported by the British government in a no-deal Brexit situation. So I just wanted to avoid any hassle. And I mean, it's not that I came to Ireland through elimination. Ireland itself it just seemed like a very charming country to me because I think India and Ireland have a lot of shared history and a shared heritage of being, well, let's just say, facing the same problems in the past, and that's something that I thought I could bond over. There are other similarities as well. So, for instance, like it's an English-speaking country, and in India, you'd be speaking in English in a lot of places in urban areas. And it's a place that's doing well. It's a country that prides itself for being liberal. It's a country that's doing well economically, and I just thought it would be a great place to be at that time. So I chose Ireland. Since you asked specifically about DCU, it's just course specific. I think all 7 Irish universities are brilliant universities. I chose DCU because my course was, in terms of just objective rankings, it was DCU that turned out to be the highest for the journalism course. And also because DCU has an intra-placement for a lot of professional degrees. So the placement, the way it works is the way it used to work before COVID happened, is that you'd get an internship, which was a compulsory part of your course immediately after you finish your classes. And it's still, the program is still on. So yeah, that's one of the primary reasons why I chose DCU. And the fact that it's in Dublin also helps because Dublin's the capital. I mean, there are other great cities in Ireland as well, but it's just there's so much going on in Dublin that for me personally, I preferred the city over the country. Countries for the weekends.
Yeah, I think being from Cork, I agree there are great cities, but Dublin is fantastic because there is a real buzz about the place and there's so much happening all the time. Now, I suppose thinking then about, you had made your decision to come and study abroad in Ireland, you had decided on your course and you had gone through the formalities. What, I suppose, thinking back to making the move and preparing to come over and then arriving and establishing yourself, can you talk me through that process a little bit and what that was like?
Well, before getting here, it's quite a bit of work. It's not difficult, but it is, I mean, you need to keep at it. So for instance, and it's going to differ from individual to individual, but liaising with the universities, keeping in touch about your course with the program director, and just in general, making sure your finances are in place, making sure you've been able to pay your fees for the first semester, making sure you've been able to pay your rent wherever it is you're staying, either on or off campus, deciding where you're going to live, and just, like counting things out and seeing if it's working out well in the long run when you write it down on paper. That does take a lot of time, especially if you have something to do with the bank. There's the whole making sure that the transfers happen properly, and um, there's the English language test that I had to take as well. So making sure that you get that done, you get it sent, the whole application process. It is a lot of hard work. I'm just rambling here because I don't have the chronology right in my head at the moment, but it is a lot of work. But the universities here cooperate a lot, and they're always there to help. So it seemed very easy to me at the time when I did it. And I suppose after I got here, um, there wasn't anything that stood out for me as difficult. It's just making sure that you've found a group of people who are also international students who you can speak to, so that, like if you're learning or adapting to a new environment immediately, it's always helpful to have other students who are in the same place as you. But at the same time, it's equally helpful to have some friends who live here already or have been living here for a while, just, so that you can sort of acclimatize yourself to the culture, to the ways of doing things here, which might be different from your home country. Like, things are quite different in India, manners of speaking, and like some etiquettes would be a little different. And I'm sure other countries as well would have their own differences. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is creating a balance between people you know and are comfortable with, but also people that you don't know, who are Irish or have been living here, and you extend your sort of sociability to them and be like, hello, I'd like to speak to you. And then getting to know both these cohorts of people is I think very important. And in general, just being open to like adventure. I suppose that's something that stands out for me in the first few weeks before our classes started. Immediately as I settled down in DCU, I remember we used to just, me and my housemates, we used to just travel all around the city, just trying to figure it out. And we went on the hop on and hop off bus, which is a bus that takes you on a tour of the city, and then we just walked for miles all around down the Liffey. So it's just, I suppose, like it's about feeling like someone who is a traveler, but with an intention of staying for at least a year. So you're just trying to get used to the new ways of life, and do what you think works for you.
I think that's a lovely overview for students and a great way of thinking about it. And I think finding that balance, as you said, and people who maybe are experiencing the Ireland for the first time, but also trying to get to know people who have been here so they can really unlock Dublin and unlock Ireland and let you know maybe some of the local secrets. Now, I think one of the great ways that students can really get to know an institution and a place is through the societies. And also, I know that you have had some part-time work while you've been here. So maybe you could talk me through any involvement you've had with the societies, and also the part-time work that you've had.
Oh yeah, societies is a big part of the college culture in Ireland, and it's something that I was used to back home as well. I think a lot of colleges in India also have a society culture, but I think in terms of the breadth of the kinds of societies, DCU has so many societies. I think the number was somewhere close to 100 different societies. Now, granted, all of them won't be as active as the other, but they're all there. And it depends on your interest. If you're very interested, then you can make the society, sort of re-energize it yourself. I specifically was on the lookout for societies that I had an interest in. So, for instance, the Journalism Society is one that I joined, the Media Production Society, and my housemate and I, we also we looked into some other societies, such as the Book Society, like the Reading Society, basically the Philosophy Society, My housemate joined the feminist society. So like there are a lot of societies to choose from. And yeah, I think what's important, and this might differ from person to person, but like for a master's program, because it's so intensive, you can, I'd say, uh, focus on just one society at a time. For an undergrad, the society experience is a little different. You have more time to immerse yourself in a society completely, and you have 3 years to sort of advance in your role in the society as well. So you can probably become the president of the society by the time you're in your 3rd year. But as a master's student, it's more about just it's like a short-term stint with that society rather than a long-term, uh, I don't know, like becoming a part of the family of the society. But nevertheless, like the Journalism Society, for instance, I joined it and I started writing for the college newspaper through it. And yeah, they used to have meetings often, and it worked out quite well. So um, I guess what I'm trying to say is there are lots of societies to choose from for international students, and that's one of the most important ways of getting to know people outside your comfort zone, which is very important for personal growth and development. As far as, I'm sorry, what was your other question, Colum?
Around the part-time work that you have engaged in.
Yeah. So when I came here, I was also, um, I decided that I wanted to search for a part-time job so that I could just pay for my own expenses instead of asking my parents. Um, uh, and I knew in the long term, being supported by my parents would not have been a feasible option. So I went on, like, I started making lists of all the possible places I could apply to and just went on full research mode. And eventually I went for the interview for the Irish Universities Association. And there were two quite long rounds of interviews, after which I got in. So again, like the whole applying for jobs experience would be different from individual to individual. But what is important to note is that in Ireland, as an international student, getting a part-time job is very much a possibility. If you're good at if you're good at what you do, and if you're interested and passionate about the field, then you're not looked at any differently than the employer would look at, let's say, an Irish or a local student. So that's never been a problem for me. It was quite a smooth ride finding the part-time job, and I'd say, yeah, I'm quite enjoying it, and I'm going on with it now 7 months later. So yeah.
Well, you are very good at it. And for anyone watching this, you can see Vish's videos and also Vish's writing. They're there to be found on the IUA website. And we'll look to put some of the links in when we're putting this video up. Now, I suppose, Vish, obviously, the year didn't quite go as planned because of the COVID-19 situation and um, all the lectures and everything having to move online, and the establishment of social distancing and that sort of stuff. So can you talk me through what that was like a little bit to move to online classes, and how that worked, and I suppose what the experience of living through COVID-19 away from home has been like?
Yeah, so the initial few, I'd say, weeks when the COVID crisis began, there was a lot of confusion around what the future for international students is going to be in Ireland. And to that end, our universities, all the 7 Irish universities, immediately had sort of emails to all international students, letting them know of the developments in the higher level policy decision making of the country. And I suppose that the list of emails that we kept receiving as international students, really helped, not just in giving us more clarity about the situation, which was good news for us, but also it sort of made sure that we're not anxious or apprehensive about the future in any way. When things got really difficult and when flights started to close down gradually, we were, so as I don't know about other countries, but as Indian students, we were asked to decide for ourselves if we wanted to go back home or stay on campus or stay in Ireland. And that the university would make sure that irrespective of where you are in the world, they're going to make sure you get your degree, but not just your degree you get your degree with the same quality that you would have if you were on campus. And that meant that the academics had to do a lot of work in making sure that our program moved completely online and worked seamlessly in favor of the students. And I mean, of course, honestly speaking, it was a little difficult adapting to online suddenly, but that's the case all over the world, I'm sure. And it was difficult not just for students, but also for academics who may not have been as accustomed to using the online platform. And some professors always tend to be better with technology than others. It all depends on what course you teach. It depends on what age group you belong to. So these are all things that there's no one to blame here. But I would say that by the end of the program, within a few weeks of going online, things seemed quite good. We had all our classes on Zoom. We had presentations sent to us. We had resources uploaded on the virtual learning environment, which is the online platform where you study, which sort of not compensates, it sort of supplements your study in the physical classroom. And my overall experience of the online classes has been not very different from what it would have been if we were in class. And it is different for different courses. Certain other courses where I suppose there's more where you need I don't know, like more conceptual understanding in a classroom environment. Those courses might have found it a little harder than something like journalism, but they're also, I know for a fact that that our project, the enhancing digital teaching and learning in the other projects in the country as well, are trying to make sure that there are systems available for all technical and non-technical courses to be able to teach with the same level of seamlessness as you would in the classroom. So yeah, Ireland's response to the whole COVID-19 crisis from the education sector has been brilliant. And I think very soon we can see a very efficient blended learning system where even if you're not in Ireland, I suppose you could still go ahead and start your degree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at realistically for the first semester of the 2020-21 academic year. And I think there will have been learnings, as you said, when it happened in March, everything had to be turned around and you moved from courses that had been designed to be delivered in person in the classroom to suddenly those all had to be delivered online. We were in the midst of a new situation. There was understandable stress and anxiety for people because we didn't understand COVID-19. And all of it still came together. So I think when you put a summer of planning into place and academics have time to really structure online learning, I think it will hopefully be even more immersive for students when that is the when it's rolled out in the first semester of the next academic year. But obviously the plan is with health and safety permitting, then we move over time to having students on campus and having that in-person experience. But we have to ensure that the safety of everyone. Now, as we move, I suppose, towards wrapping up, Vish, and talking about, when we are in a situation where we can have students back on campus and we can welcome them to Dublin, we can welcome them to Ireland. Are there particular things that you would say that international students should see or do when they do come to Ireland and to Dublin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first came here, for instance, some of the things that I said in the beginning of this interview are things that I wish I would have heard. So like making sure that you step out of your comfort zone is perhaps the most important thing that I cannot stress enough on. Um, what really helped me get sort of adapted to this new environment and make friends from all walks of life and from all loads of different countries was making sure that I'm not, reserving myself just to myself or my community. And I think that's an important thing that international students all over the world face, is to sort of, gather with just other international students from your country. And this can also happen in a classroom environment, or it can also express itself in terms of where you live and who you live with. Um, I had the good fortune of living with my housemates who seem to come from all countries across the world. So like one of them is Russian who grew up in America. One of them is Persian, who is a German citizen and grew up in Germany. One of them was Indian, but from a different state. And India is a huge place, so practically we're very different, because he's from the west side of India and I'm from the east side. So and even like the people in our classroom, for instance, from all over the European Union, from South Africa, we had lecturers from Australia. So, it's so multicultural that I cannot imagine not making use of this international study abroad experience by not stepping out of your comfort zone and making sure that you make all sorts of friends. So yeah, that's the most important thing I would say, is doing things that you haven't done before and making sure you're a little more outgoing than you would have been back home. Apart from that, I think it's important to make sure you familiarize yourself with the place you live in. So some students would be living in Dublin, but some students would be living in other cities in Ireland. And it's important to know what the place is like, what the culture of the people is like. And that would mean chatting up like people in, let's say, a cafe or like in public transport, and just kind of, like getting to know how things go here. And getting to know the place as well, if you can travel around the place where you live. So I went to the beach, which is close to Dublin. It's called Bray. So I went there with my housemates. We went all the way to Galway. Then we went to other cities in Ireland, and we made sure that we're using the periods where we have breaks to sort of do a little bit of traveling and find out the culture of Ireland, because I think that's an important part of an international student study abroad experience. It's not just to come here and make sure you get your degree, it's definitely very valuable, but it's important to make the most out of all the other things that are available to you as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to have too much advice to give, because I think it's a highly personalized experience. It's all about learning for yourself, finding out, I suppose, who you are and how you adapt to a new environment. That's going to really open you up. But what's important here is that by the end of it, you're going to be so much more confident. Whether you stay back here or you're going back home to your own country, you're going to be so much more confident, so much more informed about the world. And that just has to do with the fact that Ireland is a very multicultural country. That's a great place to be.
I think nail on the head there. It is an individualized experience, but I think what I've seen in you is that if you have a passion to follow it and to explore it and to really look at the ways in which you can engage with that in an Irish context. And I think you are a shining example to international students to really engage with the people on your course, with your housemates, and with those around you as you look to settle in and get used to your new surroundings. And then from there, you can look to build. Vish, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join me. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. You always have insights to offer, and hopefully we may chat again over the summer.
Absolutely, Colum. I'm very excited.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.